Good morning, good afternoon. What I want to do today is look at James chapter 4, verse 7, which reads, "Therefore, submit to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you." But before we do that, what we need to do is go back to the beginning of chapter 4 and find out what brought the statement about. Because at the beginning of James chapter 4 verse 7 is that little word therefore. And if you've heard me talking before, you'll know that I've said reasonably often that when you see the word in the Bible, therefore, you need to find out what it's there for. Because whatever followed before or whatever came before is very important to what is about to be said. So let's go back to the beginning of James chapter 4 verses 1 to 3. It reads like this: "Where do all the fights and quarrels among you come from? They come from your desires for pleasure, which are constantly fighting within you. You want things, but you cannot have them, so you are ready to kill. You strongly desire things, but you cannot get them, so you quarrel and fight. You do not have what you want because you do not ask God for it. And when you ask, you do not receive it because your motives are bad. You ask for things to use for your own pleasures." So James is saying here that all our fights and our quarrels among us come from jealousy, envy, or greed. We want something, and if we don't get it, we start saying things and doing things that dishonor God, others, or ourselves. For example, we want someone's time, we want their attention, their money, or we want them to start doing something or stop doing something, and if we don't get the results we want, then we start lying, deceiving, yelling, giving them silent treatments. We start playing mind games or emotional games with people so that we can get what we think we deserve. So by the time we get to verse 7, James now stops telling us why we are fighting and quarreling, and he gives us the answer. He tells us that to move away from the quarreling and fighting and arguing, we are told to do something, that if we do this, it will become transformational, life-changing in every part of our lives. So in that one little word, therefore, what James is saying is this is the way, because of everything I've just said, this is the way to stop all those selfish motives and fighting and arguing. He says, therefore, submit yourselves to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. That's the answer to stop all that arguing and fighting. Submit to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Now, as a follower of Jesus, you never ever have to pick a fight with the devil. Why? Because the devil is always looking to pick a fight with you. He wants to destroy your marriage, your relationships with your children, your church, and any other relationships you and I might have. And one of the ways he does this is he gets people arguing, creating conflict and division. I mean, the Bible very clearly tells us, be alert, be on watch. Your enemy, the devil, roams around like a roaming lion, looking for someone to devour. But we seem as Christians to have become lazy and forgotten that the devil is out to destroy us as Christians. And many of us have also seemed to become unaware of the power and the authority that we have as Christians. We have the authority and the power to resist the devil. And it says very clearly in that verse that when we resist him, he will flee. That means he will run away. Yes. Now, where we're living right now here on earth is not our home. Let me clarify. 1 Peter 2:11 says, I appeal to you, my friends, as strangers and refugees in this world, do not give in to bodily passions, which are always at war against the soul. The world that we live in here is under the control of the devil. Pride, fear, envy, lust, anger, hatred, and so on. All those things exist in this world that we live in. But we are not part of it. And we have the authority and the power to resist all those things. Yes. So how do we do that? By submitting to God. So let's have a look at that word, submit. What does it mean to submit to God? Now, most of us think that we don't need God, that we can do all right living by ourselves without anybody's help or anybody else's help for that matter. Now, that's called pride. The word submit actually comes from two words, under and arrange. So a person who believes in God, who submits to God, will always arrange themselves, or another word for that is to put themselves. So we could say a person who submits to God will put themselves under the authority of God, always. Being humble before God and submitting ourselves before Him will mean that we will place ourselves under His authority and we will do whatever He asks us to do. Just like in a physical army. If you're fighting a physical battle, against a physical army, and your commander gives you orders to do something, you will obey what he says because he's your commander. So in other words, what we need to understand is that God's will and purpose for our lives is much more important than our desires and our wills. That's what it means to submit to God. It means putting God first. It means living for Jesus instead of living for ourselves, which is what most of us tend to do. Submitting to God is giving up wanting our way all the time. But instead, it means giving ourselves totally to God every day and saying, Lord, not my will, but yours be done. That's what it means to submit to God. And then when we can do that, we can stand and resist the devil, but only when we submit it to God. So let's have a look at this word resist. What does the word resist mean? It means to fight against and to oppose. So that means that whatever you are resisting is actively attacking you. Understand this? You cannot resist something unless it's actually attacking you. Whether you are resisting the thought of eating another bar of chocolate or you're resisting the thought of stealing something. You cannot resist something unless it's attacking you in whatever form that takes. So to resist the devil means that he is actively attacking you one way or another, whether it's physically, mentally, or emotionally. Remember, you cannot resist something unless it's first attacking you. That's why it says in 1 Peter 5, 8-9, be alert, be on the watch. Your enemy, the devil, roams around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. Be firm in your faith and resist him, because you know that other believers in all the world are going through the same kind of sufferings. So this means that we don't put down our guard and become lazy, arrogant, and think that we'll never get attacked by the devil. No! We become aware and watchful. Now, as we begin to get stronger and stronger in our faith, we must understand and realize that the enemies we are up against are real forces that come from the powers of darkness. The Bible tells us, Ephesians 6:12, it says, for we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. So can you understand why this verse, therefore submit to God, resist the devil and he will flee from you, is so important for us to understand? Because if we are submitted to God, then we don't need to fear anything that the devil might throw at us. Why? Because if we are submitted to God, we can resist him and he will flee. He will run away. Yes. Amen. So let's understand this today. More than anything else, understand the authority you have. If you are submitted to God, if you have given yourself totally to God, God, I am yours. Everything in my life is yours. If you are submitted to God, then you have the authority and the power to resist the devil. And it says he won't just walk away. He will flee. He will run away. Amen. Yes. Let's be submitted Christians who have authority and a power in this world that God can move in and through us to bring about his will. Amen. God bless you guys.